This is Stories from the States. I'm Chris Fitzsimon. This week, we're talking about ICE. Across the country, many communities are seeing an increased ICE presence. Cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York have seen aggressive and sometimes violent tactics from ICE officers trying to apprehend people from the street and from their homes. With increased ICE raids, many U.S. citizens have also been swept up and detained. Today, we'll chat with Washington, D.C. Bureau reporter Ariana Figueroa about this trend. We'll also hear from Ayman Soliman. Soliman has been in the United States since 2014. He was granted asylum here in 2018. He was recently detained and then released by ICE. Now he's sharing his experience.
He started mocking all of us. Listen, you will tell me that you was kidnapped from the street. I don't care.
We'll hear from him in a moment. Ayman Soliman has been in the United States since 2014. He was granted asylum here in 2018. He was fleeing persecution from the Egyptian government, where Ayman was detained and tortured for his work as a journalist during the Arab Spring. He's built a life in Cincinnati, working as an imam and chaplain at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. However, his asylum was revoked in June, and then he was asked to meet with immigration officials on July 9th. Ayman first said the check-in was going fine, but quickly turned into an over 2-hour interrogation by ICE and FBI agents. Ultimately, he was arrested and sent to Butler County Jail in Hamilton, Ohio, where other people detained by ICE were taken. When he was detained, he had no idea if or when he would be released or deported. He was held in ICE custody for 73 days and then released without warning in September. Ayman joins me now to talk about his experience. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
Well, first of all, I just want to know how you're doing. It's been a couple months since you had that, what I'm sure was a harrowing experience. How are you doing?
I'm slowly adjusting. It was definitely one of the most traumatizing, if not the most traumatizing experiences of my life. So I'm sure it left a lot of scars and wounds. So trying to adjust slowly.
Well, I'm glad you're doing as well as can be expected, I guess, given the circumstances you've endured. I want to bring us back to the day of your scheduled ICE check-in. When you went to show up on July 9th, what happened?
Before we went to this routine check-in, as he said, I got an attorney who called them to just check what is happening. When they terminated my asylum, they referred me to immigration court in Cleveland, Ohio, which means I'm already in court. I'm following the rules, and I'm waiting for an immigration judge to decide whether I qualify for asylum, I qualify for status, or they will go ahead and confirm the government decision to terminate my asylum. But we asked them, and they said it's just a routine check-in, and we went expecting that I'll go home, or let's say mostly go home, because there were lots of things going on with ICE kidnapping people from the streets. So we were kind of worried, but they confirmed it twice that this was just a routine check-in. And when we entered the office, we found two people. The first one introduced himself as the ICE officer and the other one as FBI agent. And when my attorney asked why FBI is here, they said we're here for just some few questions. And this is voluntarily. And to be honest, this was very, very scary. Someone in my situation fighting the government, fighting in court to save his life, because I know sending me back to Egypt could mean that sentence. And now I'm meeting the FBI. When you meet an FBI, especially if you're Muslim, then there is a big trouble. Most likely, they're not having you here because some information that you're posting pornography, for example, or because you're, a drug dealer. It's, terrorism, most likely, violence, accusations, Islamophobia. So I really did not see that as an option to say no.
Sorry to interrupt. What kind of questions did they ask you during this time?
Everything about my life. My life in Egypt, my political views, my religious views, the degrees that I got in Egypt, my opposition to the Egyptian regime, how I was detained, how I came to the US, my life in the US, my relationship to any group or any organization that call itself Islamic. They actually named many, many, many that I never ever heard of, including very radical and extremist and terrorist groups.
And then after that 2.5 hours, when the questioning was done, what happened?
To be honest, during the conversation, I felt like I personally felt that they probably realized that I was not the person that they were looking for. They probably got some misinformation. I would say the two officers became somehow more friendly towards the end of the conversation, and I thought they will ask me to go home. They asked us to excuse them for a minute or two. They went outside the room and they came back telling me that, Mr. Solomon, unfortunately, you are under arrest. That was a terrible moment. Everything darkened, and I asked them why. The ICE officer was very honest, and he said, "We just got some order from above that anyone who comes to an ICE office should be detained." The FBI officer tried to find some excuse related to something related to my visa, but it was not really convincing. And they took me to the Butler County Jail.
And that must have been a harrowing experience. Do you remember arriving at the jail and what was going through your mind?
Uh, I would say hearing that I will be detained was not just shocking, it was traumatizing. All my experience of detainment and torture in Egypt just out of a sudden came to my mind. It was like a terrible horror movie. And now, after 11 and a half years in the US, I might be sent back. And I'm sure the regime this time is way more violent, way more brutal. So it was really terrible. They took me to the Butler County Jail, where I realized that we're starting a time of dehumanization.
What do you mean by dehumanization?
Everything in jail when you go tells you that this is a different life than your life outside. And although we detained for no crime, we did not commit any crime. We were just supposed to be held there until a judge decides if we are deportable or if we should be free. So we should have been treated better. But this is a maximum security jail, and the rules apply to everyone, even if you did not commit a crime. You are equal to the person who killed 1,000 people. When I first arrived there, they held us in a freezing room, a holding room where we were held for 12 to 13 hours for no reason. You're supposed to have what they call booking, where you just take off your normal cloth, put on the jail cloth, and just be registered as an inmate or detainee. Unfortunately, we had to remain in a freezing room, and we're stripped off our top cloth except a t-shirt. Everyone was shivering, and I had to keep jumping and exercise in order to keep my body warm. That is dehumanization. Why are you doing that? And people would get toilet paper, soak it in water, and hit the fan in order to block the fan, to block the airway, so they can protect themselves from this freezing air. After that, I'm in a room with 12 or 14 more people with a toilet inside the room exposed. Everyone can see you if you are using the bathroom. And I asked the officer outside to let me use a bathroom that was used by other prisoners. And he said no. And he kept mocking me. And he asked me to use this toilet in front of everyone, which is very dehumanizing. I don't see how is that part of a detention center for people who did not commit any crime. Even if you committed a crime, you deserve a better treatment than that. How when they finally took us to change our cloth and put on our new jail uniform, the same officer who was mocking me for asking to use a bathroom took me and two other inmates, they were Spanish speaking, to a room to change our cloth, and he asked us, the three of us, to strip naked in front of each other. And I told him, this is impossible. Why do I have to do that? The room, the narrow room, has a screen wall at the end that easily, I think it was intentionally This screen wall was built in order for people to go back, behind it and change their cloth. So why are you asking us to strip naked in front of each other to change our cloth? This is dehumanizing. And he said, listen, he started mocking all of us. Listen, you will tell me that you was kidnapped from the street. I don't care. You can tell me that you left your kids or your family back home and you don't know anything about them or they don't know anything about you. I don't care. You tell me that you have not eaten anything the entire day. I don't care. Tell me that you haven't slept for whatever time. I don't care. I do not care. You have to listen to the orders here. When I told him it's impossible and there is no power would force me to strip naked, and this goes against every human value and it goes against my own faith. And I raised my voice, and he let me, after fighting with him, let me go use this screen wall, and the other two had to strip naked in front of me and him and each other. That tells you that this is dehumanizing, and I don't see any justification. I cannot accept any justification for that.
And you were detained for 73 days.
Yes.
At any point, did you have hope that you would be released?
Unfortunately not. The first 2 weeks, I would say I was more optimistic because I was told that I qualify to get released on bond. I'm a person who had zero felony in my criminal record. I have a very good reputation where I am. I'm a professional PhD student, a researcher on Islam and biomedical ethics. Many people wrote statements to the judge praising me and saying that I should be released, so I should qualify. But then, unfortunately, the government objected a bond hearing and said the court does not have jurisdiction on my case. And they fabricated some claims that I had the 3 outstanding warrants for terrorism and murder in Iraq, a country I never visited. So I lost my bond.
So wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. They said you had warrants in Iraq,
Yeah,
and you'd never been to Iraq.
I never been to Iraq, and these were all fraudulent information, fabricated charges, just to convince the court and argue that the court did not have jurisdiction because I represented a society threat. And of course, they had to withdraw this later. And when I faced the government attorney in court and told them, you guys accused me of murder and terrorism in Iraq, and I never been there. Where did you get this information from? They said, we apologize. This was a mistake. We just copy pasted from a file of another person and put it on there, and we did not realize that it was you.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first few days where I had hope, but once I lost the bond release, I felt every day was a day closer to being sent to Egypt and getting killed.
When you were detained by ICE, there was a lot of outrage from community members, sparking protests calling for your release. A few co-workers at Cincinnati Children's Hospital spoke out to support you, and some of them were fired for doing so. Did you know that there was quite a bit of publicity about your case? Were you aware that people in Ohio were talking, and nationally were talking about you?
Yes, I met a kind officer. He told me there was somehow some press conference in front of the IS office after I got detained, but I didn't really think it will be more than that. Later in the morning, I went to my cell at 3 a.m. and then wake up at 5 to pray and get breakfast. And then people there said, oh, we know you. We saw you on the news last night. So eventually, we had small televisions in our cells. So I would watch the news and television, and I knew that there was a lot of support. But unfortunately, I was not really sure that this will ever impact my situation.
And the people that you were in jail with, we hear all the time that it's the worst of the worst that are being rounded up and that these are hardened criminals. You obviously do not fit that description. I wondered if you had a chance to talk to other men that were in that detention center with you, and what were they like? What was their story?
Absolutely. I 100% disagree. And I could say with confidence that I met some of the most beautiful people I met in my life. Some of the best, not the worst of the worst. We've been told that they detain and deport the criminals, the undocumented, and the illegal. I actually moved between 3 different pods. A pod has an average of 90 plus people. I would say I dealt with 150 people average. I would say everyone was kind. Everyone was a decent human being with a story. They did not commit a crime except hoping for a better life. Everyone came to this country documented through the southern border, applied for asylum, got a date in court, got a work permit, paid their taxes. Everyone except for two told me that they never committed a crime. Only two people that I met said they were deported because they committed a crime. I only met, I think, two people that told me that they got into the country illegally. So I don't think these are the worst of the worst. This is just a statement they made in order to convince the American public that these people deserve to be deported and to cover their racist reasons behind the deportation.
You have spoken out quite a bit since your release. Are you concerned about retribution? Are you worried?
Every American is concerned right now who is safe. American citizens are being kidnapped from the streets and being attacked and beaten up, and so no one is safe. No one is safe, even American citizens.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that experience, and I really appreciate you being with us, and we hope you will stay well.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure being with you.
In a moment, we'll head to Washington to chat with reporter Ariana Figueroa. Then we'll chat with Evening Wrap newsletter writer Danielle Gaines on the top stories to watch out for. We'll be right back.
At a time when so many communities are losing their local news outlets, State's Newsroom is filling a gap. We are now the nation's largest state-focused nonprofit news organization, with reporters based in every state capital and Washington, D.C. But we can't do it without your support. Your contributions allow us to produce award-winning journalism and deliver it to you for free, no pop-ups, no paywalls. This is a crucial time to support local journalism, and every bit helps. To give, go to statesnewsroom.com/donate.
The Trump administration has been aggressively pursuing mass deportations of people without legal status. That has led to U.S. citizens also being swept up in the raids and detained. As ICE raids are increasing, State's Newsroom D.C. Bureau reporter Ariana Figueroa has heard from immigration experts that these detainments will only increase and legal residents, including U.S. citizens, will continue to be arrested too. Ariana joins me now. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Well, let's jump in and talk about it. There's so much on the immigration front. From your reporting, people with documentation are being swept up in these ICE raids. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, ICE agents do have a pretty broad discretion on their kind of enforcement tactics. And as they're doing this, it's really hard to tell who is a citizen and who is not. There is no national database that an agent can quickly look someone up. And there's also no requirement to carry along some type of documentation like a passport. So it's really hard for you to simply just verify citizenship status despite what the Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh said.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about that. I mean, my summary of that is he basically said, yeah, that might happen. All you have to do is tell the ICE agents that you're a citizen and they'll let you go. But that doesn't seem to be the practice.
Right, it's not. There has definitely been a few court cases and suits specifically brought by US citizens or people who have some type of legal documentation that have said they tried to inform an agent, yes, I have my papers or I am a US citizen, and they were either pretty roughed up or detained. We have multiple reports of US citizens being detained, and our own, networks have been covering those instances as well.
The undercurrent of that decision was described by a lot of folks as racial profiling also, that it's okay for someone who looks like that they might be of Hispanic origin or another nationality, that alone is enough for ICE to be able to stop and detain people.
Yes, in their briefs to the Supreme Court, ICE and DHS said, having those type of characteristics, someone who has an accent, their type of employment, such as landscaper, or just even location. So someone taking the bus, I take the bus every morning, is all grounds for suspicion. And they had argued that they needed that type of questioning to pair with their immigration enforcement.
What happens after someone is detained? How long does it take to verify immigration status?
It can take a while to verify your status. I mean, DHS previously has accidentally removed US citizens. There are a lot of forms that agents will try and get folks to sign. Voluntary departure is one of them. And that essentially says you have agreed to not appear before, any judicial person and you will be swiftly removed. The Trump administration has also been aggressively using this really wonky policy tool called expedited removal, and applying it to people, and they haven't really had the chance to challenge that. And essentially, that tool allows for like quick deportations, again, without appearing before an immigration judge. So if you do have some type of papers, or if you are a US citizen, even opening like an immigration case can take like weeks.
Even if you are a U.S. citizen or you have legal authority to be here and you're detained, it's not like there's a lot of opportunities while you're there to talk to your lawyer or to reach out to family members. I'm struck by these stories about how people are 1, 2, 3 days, maybe more, and really have no recourse at the moment.
Well, it's also really hard to track people because if you are picked up, maybe you're in a processing center, but within 24 to 48 hours, you could very easily be across the country and your family has no idea. People are shuffled around really fast. And sometimes, like, even if you are able to get legal representation, your attorney could lose you.
So, especially if you're a U.S. citizen and you are detained for several days, once you are released, is there any recourse? Can you do anything after that happens?
Well, I mean, in the racial profiling case to the Supreme Court, that was brought by one of the plaintiffs was a U.S. citizen who was pinned by an ICE agent and detained for several hours before he was finally released. So that's the type of recourse that we're seeing is lawsuits left and right. But as of now, that's kind of where things are.
Do you expect these issues to be on the Supreme Court docket for a while?
Broadly speaking, all the immigration suits that I have been covering, the pattern really has been a lower court maybe places an injunction or a bar. The Trump administration has been pretty aggressive on appealing to either an appellate court, but they have other cases they got to do. If they're not, fast enough, they have been aggressively making these emergency requests to the Supreme Court. So I almost assume nearly every immigration related case I have will in some form make its way to the high court. And there have been cases I followed that have gone to the high court several times. This case dealing with temporary protected status for Venezuelans has gone to the high court at least twice. And I expect to see that in the future.
Broadly, do you feel like that the public understands all these ramifications? It just feels like these stories keep happening over and over and over in our network and in other media outlets. And I wondered if you think the confusion and chaos of this is becoming widespread enough that people understand it.
I think what we are seeing now, it's kind of coming to the front door of people who haven't necessarily been involved in immigration. For folks of us who have been covering it, we kind of know, again, like how much of a patchwork immigration policy is in this country and how wonky and almost like understandably frustrating it can be for some folks going through the system. And I think people who maybe weren't tuned into that or had never had some type of experience, it's now being in the forefront and they're seeing, these aggressive ICE tactics and are now being aware of the ramifications.
Well, we really appreciate your coverage in the D.C. Bureau of States Newsroom, and we appreciate your time today. Thanks, Ariana.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Coming up shortly, producer Mallory Chang will check in with Evening Wrap newsletter writer Danielle Gaines on the top stories she's looking out for. And one last thing.
Hello, it's podcast producer Mallory Chang here, filling in for Chris in this segment. We're looking ahead with the news for this week and next week, and joining us now is Danielle Gaines. She's the national newsletter author for States Newsroom, and she puts together our daily newsletter, The Evening Wrap. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's a great newsletter. Hi, Danielle. Thanks for being here with us today.
Hi, great to talk to you. And yes, please subscribe. I'd love to have you.
It's a great newsletter. I'm not biased or anything. But what is the top story that you saw this week?
Yeah, we've had so much news on redistricting this week, so I feel like we have to revisit this ever continuing issue now. It's like elections, it just doesn't ever end. But there was big news this week out of Utah. A state judge presiding over a case challenging the state's 2021 congressional district map put in place a new map that includes a solidly Democratic district covering Salt Lake City. And she refused a version that was drawn by the legislature, which favored Republicans. And this is all based on a challenge to that 2021 map. A group of voters said it violated a voter effort, which bans partisan gerrymandering in the state. The fight there is far from over. One Republican lawmaker is already calling for impeachment of the judge. She was, by the way, appointed and approved by Republicans. But impeachment is a really high bar, so uncertain if that's going anywhere. And then, of course, we have all the mid-decade redistricting news going on as well. And that's being pushed by President Donald Trump and Republicans across the country.
More to come on redistricting. What's a story that you're looking out for this upcoming week?
This upcoming week, I'm going to be paying attention to shutdown cleanup work, of course. So the Congress voted to reopen the government for at least 2 months.
Oof.
There's going to be another fight in January. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly debate moves or doesn't move, especially with the holidays, on some of the lingering issues. So obviously health insurance premiums were a big issue, and that wasn't resolved. And now, open enrollment is happening, will be complete, and people are going to start to feel that hurt. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Just in the last few days of the shutdown itself is when states kind of started rolling out their payments, partial or full, to people who are receiving SNAP benefits. So, there's an interesting government story in there about how or if, states will be repaid. And of course, the air traffic issue. Will we have air traffic controllers working at full force for the holiday travel?
We'll see. Good luck to everyone traveling during the holiday season. I won't be, but good luck to everybody else who are.
Yes, I'll be driving.
I think that might be the best route. And the last part of the segment, it's personally my favorite part with one last thing. So what's our one last thing today?
Yes, I've had this song stuck in my head all week long. Some folks, especially in the Midwest, will know this song if you were around in the late 70s, early 80s, but it's called The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Gordon Lightfoot. And it's a song that honors the crew that died aboard the SS Fitzgerald. They were sailing on Lake Superior on November 10th, 1975, going from Wisconsin to Detroit, and the ship sunk. And so this week was the 50th anniversary of that tragedy. And the Michigan Advance wrote just a beautiful story about the families who are still around, the industry that's still around, and about how this song has called attention to all of it for many decades now.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate you being here. I always learn so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the States. I'm Chris Fitzsimon.
And I'm Mallory Chang.
Mallory produced and edited this podcast. David Singer produced our theme music. And a special thank you to Marty Schladen from the Ohio Capital Journal. If you liked what you've heard today, you can subscribe to Stories from the States wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll talk to you soon.